Hey folks, Jonathan here. A lot of you watched me rescue this thing out of an old field, or down over the side of a hill actually, but anyway, this is Komatsu D-20A, just a 6-way blade grading dozer. And what we're gonna do, well, first let me explain to you what we've done. When I took it off of the truck, both tracks were locked on it. I had to drag it on, and then once we got it started, I was able to get this track to break loose under power and turn good. This track was still stuck. Now, I'll try to explain this so everybody can understand it, but I knew that there was an issue with the pulling on the right side. But with the track stuck, I had no way of knowing whether it was in the final drive or in the steering clutches. But the way that these are set up, the steering clutches are directly down, one on each side. You got a main clutch and then you got steering clutches. Well, of course, the brake band is around the outside of the steering clutch drum. So I knew if I got this track broke free and I was able to see if the brake worked. If I knew if the brake worked, then our problem was in our clutches and not in our final drive. So that's why I worked pretty hard to get this track unfroze. What I ended up having to do was Bobby actually got on the machine and was moving it forward and back, and it wasn't powering on this side, so it didn't want to brake, it just wanted to slide. So I hooked the tractor, I actually put a chain just a little ways up on the track and ran it back and then hooked it to the tractor and pulled it until I got that track to spin. And once we got it to spin, we was able to drive it straight, hit the brake, and it would try to turn. So even though it wasn't powering, the brake was working. So I knew then that the issue was absolutely in the steering clutches. So that's what we've got to do. I think today Noah's actually in classes right now. When he gets out, I'm going to go ahead and put him to taking this thing apart. And I've got some other things I've got to do and trucks I got to work on. So we'll go ahead and get this thing tore down and try to get that steering clutch out at least. And we will go from there on this machine. Okay folks, I've been trying to help Noah on and off on this thing. I had 3 tows I had to go do and a few other things, so it's been kind of tough. But we're on the home stretch now, getting it apart. I'm heating that up. We're having trouble getting that pin out. It won't spin in the center. I don't have my big torches down here, so just a little propane torch. I'll see if I can get it to turn. Once I get it to turn, maybe I can get it out, and hopefully I can get the cover off, and then we'll start getting the bolts out of the clutch. But anyway, let me get at it. Okay, cover's off, down to the clutch. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see in there. There you go. I'm gonna take the row of bolts out on this side and on this side, and we can pull the brake band and everything out all at once with it. And then we'll see if we can figure out what's the problem. It's got a lot of moisture in it, which is about normal, but we'll check it out. Okay, we've hooked the cable to it and pulling it so we can turn it around and get some more of the bolts out. Okay, something else Noah and I are working on. Some of you may remember this Bement & Son lathe, made 1870 actually, and we fired it up. I haven't had it running in a while because I hadn't needed it, and I usually just fire it up when I do need it, but never liked the chuck on it. 4-jaw chuck, but it had a lot of wear on it. It was hard to dial indicate in. It's a 16-inch chuck, and it was just, you probably, let me see, yeah, see how much flays in it. Just a lot of wear. The old style actually took the took a chuck, I don't even know where the chuck key's at, but with a female instead of a male, and just had a lot of wear. So I picked up another chuck. I'll show you here in a second, but you know, a lot of you probably seen the ways on this. Somebody has cut into it and really chopped it hard, but I mean, you know, it don't really affect it. And this thing is see, 14.5 foot on center, or between centers. I think the whole machine's about 20 foot long, close to it. But anyway, got a faceplate and steady rest. The plans are is to get another chuck on this. I bought an 18-inch chuck, and I'll show it to you. Here's the chuck I bought. Now, this is 18-inch in diameter total, and I've got to make an adapter, and I've actually got a piece up in my 15-inch lathe, that my Colchester that I'm making, that will actually bolt to that machine. Then I'm going to use, or to the actual cement lathe, and then we're going to use that lathe to turn it down to the diameter I need to go on here, and that way we know it'll be straight. But I'm going to flip this up so you can see it. Alright, this chuck's not in too bad a shape, but it had been sitting underneath of a building and it had some rust on it. We're working on cleaning it up, and it's stuck, so we may end up having to tear it apart and get it good and clean. But it's a good tight chuck. It's a Pratt. It's like I said, it's 18-inch. It's number 78, and a buddy of mine I bought this from had it in the floorboard of his car, and drove up here and reached in and grabbed it and pulled it out and asked me where I wanted it, and I said, you can just sit it right there, I'll get it. And then I realized how heavy it was, so we weighed it, and it's 247 pounds is what this chuck weighs. So Noah and I actually ran a bar through it, and we grabbed each side of it and of the bar and carried it up here. So we hadn't figured out yet how we're going to get it up there yet. But anyway, that's what we're working on. One of the things we're working on. And we'll go pull it. When I pull it, you tell me when to stop. All right?
What's going to happen? Two more bolts than you said?
Two more? All right. Is that the last move or what? Is there more?
That's the last two.
Okay, steering clutch is out. As you can see, it wasn't too bad. Just ran a wire around it and then taped a 2-inch strap to it, pulled the strap around, and then just picked it up out. The brake band actually don't look too bad. It needs replaced, but it's not the world's worst. And the problem I'm seeing is a lot of rust, and I don't know what the issue is yet. I don't know if there's, I don't know. We'll have to tear it down a second. Unless the teeth are ripped off the inside or something. Because, you know, there's nothing, issues there with the final drive or the ring gear and pinion in the center. So, time to take a clutch apart. All right. Okay, we've got them pulled apart. A lot of rust. I think they're just wore out. That's what it is. There wasn't enough spring pressure. And what I did was stuck 2 bolts in the hub there, and I took a bar and turned it and moved the track. Done the same thing with this side to make sure there was nothing, you know, sheared in there that was keeping me from moving. So it's definitely in the clutch. So they may have run it slipping until it just quit moving. So either way, we'll look into the new clutch plates and get a count on how many's supposed to be there, and the clutches and the plates, and we'll start getting them back together. Okay, after inspecting these really well, you can see that there just wasn't any surface area on these plates because they're so rusty. So we're going to put new plates and new clutches in. We got 7 clutches, 6 plates. One side, that's $275. Unfortunately, but you know, cheapest I can get them, and it's got to be done. So we'll get these on the way. Brake band, as you can see, it's down to the edge of the rivets, and it looks like it might have been wearing in them a little bit, but they want $175 for this. I'm not going to do it. I've got rivets, I've got linings, so we're going to reline this. We'll do that in the next video along with putting the clutches in. I think everything else is fine. I can't find any issues. So we'll hopefully see how it works out and goes back together. But you know, I think the main problem with this was the water getting in the case and rusting it, and you know, just sitting too much. And but we're not going to worry about the grooves in here. We'll just live with them. Clean this up really well, smooth it out. Brake drum's expensive. I'm not going to buy one. You know, we're not going in here to replace a bunch of parts. Now, if I ran this machine 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week as a, you know, this makes my living for me, it'd be a different situation. You know, I would go ahead and buy, well, at least a new drum. The brake band, you know, the lining's going to be just as good when we line it, so it don't really matter on it. We're not sort of going halfway with that. Put new linings on, we're going all the way. We're going halfway with this because it's not perfectly smooth, but that's okay. And I think everything else will be fine on it. It runs good. Like I said, we'll get into the hydraulics later on it, but this is part one of two for the getting the steering system straightened out and getting it moving and running, where we can at least you know, test everything hydraulic wise and see what, you know, what the problem is. So, all right, appreciate everybody watching, and till next time, bye.